consultant with the lovely Vishwam Velandy.
Hello.
Normally how I do this is I intro you and then you can kind of describe yourself. So I would say that you are an incredibly talented actor, and you also have a whole entire alternate identity in the real estate industry.
I've been in independent films, and I've also been a real estate broker for a while. And I've had the pleasure of working with lovely people in both fields. You know, I have this kind of bipolar existence. And, you know, it's like I kind of think of it, or I get worried sometimes that it's sort of like jack of all tradesy of me. I also went to art school. I'm a painter.
Oh, yeah, I always forget that.
I used to have this thing where I would tell artists that I was an actor and actors that I was an artist and real estate brokers that I was an artist. and so I was never anything.
Yeah.
You know.
Which one do you feel like speaks to you most deeply?
Actor. Yeah. I think it plays into my personal talents and my feelings and how I am the best out of any. I feel like I can express what is, you know, deep in me the best through that. I only paint now when I feel like a spark. So, and I do it in fun. It's much more fun for me that way rather than, you know, studio and this is my studio and this is my practice and this is, you know, I've never been one for schedules and routines like in that kind of way. So the last time I painted, to be honest, was on a trip to Greece, and I set up like an easel and stuff in this cave. And
did you happen to have a significant other with you, or was that a solo trip?
It was a girlfriend trip. Yes. Yeah.
Sounds romantic.
Well, yeah, actually.
The painting setup and all of that.
For sure, yeah. And it was like shirtless in the sun, and it was, you know, it was like I don't know. Yeah, it was very romantic.
You're
I went
from
to high
East
school
Coast,
in
right?
Connecticut. Yeah.
Okay.
And very small, very New Englandy kind of town.
Yeah. And what was that? What were kind of your teenage years like?
I wasn't exactly cool, and I wasn't exactly a total geek, but I knew people in both.
And so you could kind of move seamlessly from group to group.
But I definitely was also a nerd.
Right.
You know?
But you got invited to like the math parties, but also the
I was
football
on the math
parties.
league. Yeah, I was on that. But like, you know, I actually did very poorly, and I don't think I ever scored a point.
Like jumping a little further ahead in your timeline. How did you end up getting into acting? Was that while you were still a teenager, or?
No, it's funny. It in high school and in middle school, I never like did school plays, like the live aspect of it. Like, I mean, to this day, I couldn't do one. It's too scary. Fast forward, I moved to Los Angeles and moved with a ton of luck next door to my really good friend Eugene, who started putting me in stuff.
Well, and do you feel like when you met Eugene and did you feel like an immediate connection? Because I feel like that happens like romantically, but also totally with collaborators and friends as well.
I fell in love. Yeah. I'm not kidding you. I really fell in love. The very first thing that we did. So I kind of like, I got some apartment right next door. And so Eugene said, like, you know, tomorrow, like the day I moved in, he was like, tomorrow I'm taking you to lunch. And he took me to a Thai restaurant, like on our first date or something. And he took me to a Thai restaurant called Ruin Pear, which is Eugene's favorite Thai in Los Angeles, and it was really spicy. And we talked and talked, and I was immediately wound up
Yeah.
into his tornado.
Well, and so how did you go from art school to moving to Los Angeles?
I think I
And at that point, what did you want to pursue?
well, that's a funny story too. I knew New York my whole life, and I from a little kid I was like, someday I'm gonna live in New York. I would come here with my parents and whatever, and I would always be like, it would be the coolest thing in the world to live in New York, and I've always come back and always come back. And then when I started hearing about Los Angeles, I was like, I don't know anything about out there. And that feels like something unknown and whatever. I had never I've never been to the West Coast before that. And it was nothing that my family knew or anybody that I know had done, like growing up and whatever. And I was like, I have to move here. And plus, there's this Russian freak doing all this fun looking stuff. And everyone seems to have a good time. And also, everyone was really nice. That was this other thing. And so the way that I got my parents to allow me to go out there was I told them that I applied and got into UCLA for an MFA in sculpture, and they were like, oh my God, that's great. Like, and so I was like, okay, I'm moving out there now. Like, I'm just going to go. And I went out to LA, and so they were like, great. So like, have you been to the campus? Have you seen, have you met all the people? And I was like, I think what I actually should do is, like, UCLA has a I can defer for them. And I was like, I'm going to defer for a year and just kind of like, I'm new to LA.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I'm new to LA. I have to see.
Make sure I want to commit.
Yeah, make sure I have to commit. Plus, I was like, I also want to apply to Yale. And I think it would be cool to do that from LA.
My God.
And they were like, okay, like that seems like a good idea, I guess. Like if you can defer, no problem.
So you got into movies and you were acting with Eugene, but then you were also like pursuing acting in like a serious way. And then you also mentioned to me once that you got into management. So how did that happen?
So my brother is a vet, so I decided I would go to the VA hospital in Los Angeles in Westwood by UCLA, funny enough. And I drove out there, like without really calling anybody and whatever. I just drove out, and they were like, yes, we're doing a Christmas luncheon. Come out, and you can like stand here, you can serve brisket. And I was serving brisket, and then I got this old man was next to me, and he was like, what? So he said, he like nudged me on the shoulder, and he was like, so what is brisket? I was like, you don't know what brisket is? It's just, I don't know, it's just meat. And he was like, can I taste it? And I was like, sure. And he was like, what do you do? And I actually stupidly said I was an artist. And he was like, and I said, what do you do? And he said, I'm a manager. And I said, oh, that's cool. What do you manage? And he said writers and directors, and he repped Matthew Weiner, the guy that invented Mad Men. And his name was Keith Addis. And he was like, you seem like a great guy. Do you work? And I said, no. And he said, come to my house tomorrow come to my house right after New Year's Eve, and I want to help you. And on that day, whatever it was, January 2nd or 3rd, I drove up to Los Feliz to this beautiful, huge mansion, and the gate opened, and his two gigantic, most beautifully groomed collies stormed up to me, and he helped me get a job. He was a kind of like an old managing king, and he had all these proteges scattered at all of the agencies and all of the management firms, and he got me a job at Management 360 where I worked.
Amazing.
Yeah, where I worked. And it was like the real shit. I was like in the mailroom. It's like all the books and articles about that. And it was insane. I read like hundreds and hundreds of scripts every day. And I did coverage. I famously said pass on Get Out.
Hilarious.
That was like a huge problem. And I also, and we represented Julianne Moore, and I also said pass on Still Alice, which was like her
Oscar.
her Oscar. Yeah. Yeah. And I ended up quitting because I was like, oh, why would I manage actors when I could be an actor?
Right. You've mentioned to me before that you're a serial monogamist. So at that stage where, when you're managing people and also acting, were you in a relationship? Or what was dating in LA like?
It's funny. I was dating somebody when I got the job. When I got the job, I was single. But when a couple months later, I met a Scorpio photographer who turned out to be a big handful. And she, it's funny. She always questioned me. In retrospect, I thought it was very annoying. But she was like, "Why are you a manager? Don't you want to be an actor?" And she would always say that, and I'd always be like, "Fuck you! I got this insane job, like it might pay me $10 an hour or whatever, but like I'm gonna be some huge Hollywood manager because of this." And like, don't try to like put in, poison into my head. Like, fuck being an actor. I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna produce the next Sopranos or whatever. And so I was dating this girl, and I remember I quit on my birthday, and we were at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and for like birthday lunch, and like a couple of the other managers were there, and they didn't know that I had quit, and they were like, "What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at work?" And I was like, "No, I'm an actor now." And
whoa, bossy.
Yeah,
that must have felt good.
Yeah,
happy birthday to me.
It felt so cool. I was like 28 or something, or 27, and I was like, this is what I'd love to do.
So first of all, going back to Scorpio photographer, what is your sign, and are you a big believer in astrology?
Libra, and sometimes it is so fucking spot on that I'm blown away, that I'm absolutely blown away, and I can't just be like, this is bullshit, which is what I would love to do.
What are the characteristics that you associate with your
I think
sign?
Libras are vain, horrible at confronting conflict. Like they're pacifists by nature, but that means they avoidance. Yeah.
And that gets into the whole like attachment theory stuff too, which is interesting.
For sure, yeah. It's why I've stayed in some bad relationships much longer than I probably should have. And
just because you don't want to go through the act of breaking up.
Oh my God, nothing seems worse to me.
Yeah. Do you prefer to be broken up with?
Oh my God, yeah. I would love to be broken up with. I've never actually been broken up with. Oh, actually, once I have. The Scorpio photographer. The Scorpio photographer did break up with me.
Right. So mainly you're just the heartbreaker.
Yeah. But it's never a good one. It's never like we need to talk.
Yeah.
It's like I'm emotionally vacant for a while, and then the other person is too, and then it's like this crippled golem of a relationship that dies. But I'm getting better at it, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I actually did do the We Need to Talk on my last one.
Oh, really? And yeah.
Yeah, and I think it went very well.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Growth, baby.
Yeah, and in the relationship I'm in now, I'm actually much more communicative, and
that's nice. Shout out to her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm also working on it for myself.
Yes.
But I was gonna say Libras are also very social. Mm-hmm. Like that thing that I was saying about knowing the geeks and the jocks really is a Libran thing. Yeah. And being polar like that. Yeah. For sure. And
just being fed by different things, you know?
Definitely.
And I think that also plays into why you have kind of the multiple careers going on, too.
Yeah.
Because I feel like not everyone's able to juggle those kind of social situations, but also the work life.
It's a true Libran balancing act.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like every day of my life.
Yeah. Well, so you're in Los Angeles. How did you decide to then end up back in New York? And whose heart did you break in the process?
Well, no, it wasn't actually. My heart was broken because I chased a girl back here. Actually, we started dating in L.A. and she is an editor that was living in New York at the time, but in Los Angeles for a project, and she flew back to New York, and I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. I can't be without this person. I went to visit her, freeze weekend of, I don't even remember the year, and I never left. And it was actually like I never left. Like I didn't go back to LA to like pack up my house and do all that stuff. I just sort of let it all die. And I left all
must
of
have
my
been some gal.
Yeah. I mean, I left all of my stuff in LA. It was a whole mess, and it was like, Vish, you're not dealing with your shit and all of that, you know. But I was like, oh, but I'm in paradise here in New York, and then like I said, I've always been around New York, and I've always loved it. It's just very familiar. She broke my heart when I realized that I was never going back to LA. You know, those times when you're like, oh, New York is so beautiful, and New York is so amazing, and the people here are amazing, and the stuff happening is amazing. Although at that time, I remember thinking, like, there is nothing here for me. Like, I remember it sort of being an in-between period or something. Yeah. And I felt really, like, hopeless. But
and how did you step out of that?
I moved to Manhattan. We were living in Brooklyn, and she moved to LA, and I was still living in her apartment, and I was like, I need to be in the mix.
And like in the energy.
Yeah, with the energy. I never liked Brooklyn. I hate Brooklyn to this day, and I hoped I'd never ever live there again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so you moved to Manhattan, and you're getting into real estate.
Yeah, and it just felt like it was cool that I had this thing that nobody else I knew did.
AKA, is that like stability?
Yeah. And it was like a job. And it was, but it wasn't like something like annoying, like marketing or finance or
some corporate desk job. I feel like you're on your feet a lot, showing.
Yeah, and I was out and about, and I loved talking to people, and it's
social to some extent.
It is, and I'm annoyingly kind of good at it. Yeah. You know, people love talking to me about what I do. Yeah. And getting advice, and they love me helping them find them these expensive apartments. Yeah. And so it was cool because to my friends, none of them knew about it or could talk about it exactly. And but that being said, it's also everybody has like sort of a Saturday Night Live made a joke of it, like the street easy porn. Like it's like people can talk about real estate, especially in New York, where it's on a lot of people's minds all the time. And so it sort of ticked a lot of boxes for me, and I kind of was happy with this sort of more stable life while also just getting to be sort of autonomous.
What do you consider to be a romantic evening?
Oh my God. I love, well, probably one of my favorites that I've always loved is dinner in a movie, or actually dinner in a play, or play and then dinner. Like that's the best they can get.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's like, it's like a Woody Allen movie or something. I love when you go to the thing and then you go to dinner after, and on the walk from the thing to dinner, you're talking about it. Yeah. And then there's like the walk home after the dinner, and I love the like energy of it. Totally. And it's like electrifying.
Well, and you said something to me once about how if you feel
yes.
like you have, will you say it?
Yeah. If someone told me a long time ago that if you have butterflies, it means that they do too, and you should just kiss. And
so you use that, don't you?
Yeah, I do. It's always been like, since I heard that, I was like, oh my God.
Golden ticket, green light, baby.
It is. Yeah. It's the green light. Like if you have that, you gotta just do it because they feel that thing too. And it's good butterflies. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever had sort of a negative first date experience?
Oh yeah, a million. I'm thinking of one very specifically that was at Odeon once, and it was it went really, I thought it went really well. Like amazingly well. And then I remember like I said something in a text like the next day that was, at the dinner we had, it was dinner. Oh, actually it was maybe just like drinks and oysters or something like that. And I remember it was like a great back and forth. We were talking, chit chat, whatever, 2 hours. I didn't walk her home or anything, but I texted her the next day. I was like, hey, had a great time. And I remember her writing, ew. And I wasn't expecting you to say that. I was like, what the fuck? And I remember like later after, like, okay, it was like, okay, sorry. I have no idea what the fuck is wrong. And then I remember later finding out that she thought I was like making fun of her in a weird way. Oh no. I think I have a sardonic sense of humor, and it was something.
That'll get you in trouble.
It was something like I asked her if she was on Adderall or something. But it was like not in a bad way.
Not in an accusatory way.
Yeah.
Almost more like in a complimentary way where you're like, you're really on it.
Yeah. I was like, you probably take Adderall, right? Or something. and she, I think she got offended by that. And it was like, I felt really awful about it. Yeah. Yeah.
And then it fizzled.
Yeah, well, it was dead in the water. I mean, no matter how much you try to be like, no. Yeah. It's not a thing.
Do you trust people easily?
Often too quickly. I trust people. Yeah, my mom always said that to me. She was like, you trust people prematurely. Mm-hmm. And without even knowing that. But
people tell me that too.
But that, I think there's a caveat to that where I think I can read people super quickly. Mm-hmm. Immediately, like first sentence, Like even sometimes like what kind of shoes someone is wearing, I feel like I can understand like what they are like.
Well, you're very observant, so you're like clocking everything.
Clocking everything.
Yeah.
And I think it's because of like, you know, being the younger sibling, being in the back of the car, listening to all the conversations. Like it was always kind of like that. Like I was a big mama's boy.
Yeah.
And I was always like getting carted to stuff with her, like hearing her friends talk about people and stuff
and impressions.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
And yeah. So anyway, I trust people very quickly, but there is a caveat, which is that I think I'm generally right.
What advice would you give to people who are currently unhappy with their lives, and specifically people who are unhappy about being single?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Happy about being single? Just get out there.
Yeah.
I like I said, like we sort of talked about, I've never exactly been like a good single person. But that just means that when I have been single, I always like try to remedy that by like going out and meeting all these people and stuff. I don't know. It's just putting yourself out there, I think.
Yeah.
But for your life, you just gotta quit whatever you're doing and do the thing that you want to do.
Yeah. And listen to whatever it is that you want to do.
Or it's funny because I actually never did that either. I actually never really did that. I did sort of when I moved to LA. I was like, I'm just gonna be a person in LA. Like I'm just quitting whatever and going out there, and so I did, but I don't know. I sometimes I also like a little structure. It's very Libra to me. I like both.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. You just have to find something that you can tolerate while also doing the other thing.
Totally. And hopefully one of them provides you with a little bit of stability.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the concept it's meant to be and fate? Do you believe in it?
Yeah, but I think that at the beginning of every relationship, you know, I'm like, it's fate that we met. You know, this is amazing. and then I also think it's fate that you get out, you know, that it ends.
Well, and every relationship's a lesson, and you're taking something else with you.
I've taken so much from every relationship. I love everything everyone that I've been in for one reason or another. Yeah. You know, it's some people, I know many people who have never been in a relationship or a long-term relationship or been in one 7 years ago or whatever. And there's something strange about that to me. Yeah. Personally.
And what does it kind of tell you?
It's just like, it's just kind of like they've never had that really close connection with somebody. I get really, really enraptured, like, and totally intertwined with whoever I'm dating. Like,
how soon into dating them? Is it pretty?
People have accused me of love bombing, but I don't think it is that.
Yeah.
Like, it is true.
I think it would be that if you weren't in such long-term relationships.
Oh,
like, you
God.
know?
Yeah. But for sure. And it's just like I think it's important. It's the only way you really get to know people. Yeah. So, and you know, and sometimes in relationships you get to know people so well that you end up not liking them anymore.
Yeah. So what do you love about New York City now, like these days?
Well, like I remember being here and being younger and being like, oh, I'll never be like, you know, there's always these older people that always seemed kind of like, I don't know, just more knowledgeable, and they did more stuff, and they knew more stuff, and they knew more people. And I was always like, oh, I'll never know what that person knows. I grew up with an older brother, so I was always the younger person, kind of like a watcher.
Yeah.
I was always kind of an observer, a voyeur to what other people were doing and what other people are saying, and that kind of thing. And I never felt like I would be a doer. I still don't really feel like a doer right now, but I also feel like at this point in my life, I know a lot of the people, and I know a lot of the stuff that those people when I was young knew. Right. And so I just feel a little bit better about being my age and being whatever, and not being like as nervous around in stuff as I used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like comfortable in your skin and
yeah, exactly.
If you had to give advice to people who are not yet comfortable in their skin, but they're getting into the process of feeling comfortable with themselves, what advice would you give them?
Take an acting class. I think that is one of the best ways to understand yourself, and it did miles more to me than going to deep Jungian psychoanalysis that I went to 5 days a week.
Wow.
And I just felt like acting classes make you understand people and understand yourself better than anything in the world. And it's a really cool thing to try and do.
It's also social.
Very social. And people always fall in love in acting classes.
Whoa.
They do. To meet people, you have to do stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and
did you hear that?
and I feel like you just have to go. You have to go to everything.
And you mean just like put yourself out there?
Yeah, put yourself out there. I think I've always met people by going to stuff and people introducing me to whoever, and it's just that's the best way.
Thank you for coming.
Of course.
Thank you.